Hey, welcome back, YouTube friends. Look what we've got here. This is the next step in the process towards getting our project Frankenstroke back to roller status. We've got a dually Dana 60 four-wheel drive front axle here that will eventually be living underneath the front end of that crew cab dually sitting out beside the garage. We've got to get a little bit of progress made on this guy first. One of these shocks are shot, so those can come off. We've got different shocks to put on there. We've got Energy Suspension Polyurethane bushings to put in the spring eyes on both ends and in the shackles here. I may just swap these shackles out. These are kind of crusty. I think I've got a couple here that are in a little bit better shape than those. One of the benefits of parting out as many of these as I have is that I've got some parts laying around. Aside from that, I think we will pop the cover, see what the oil looks like in this thing. Maybe we'll do a fluid change while we've got it here and easy to get to, and see what that oil level looks like. Got a little bit of moisture right here in the driver's side knuckle. That could just be from grease being slung out of that U-joint, but I want to make sure that the U-joints and the seals and everything in this thing are good so that it's going to be a serviceable unit for somebody. So we'll get into it here, start tearing this thing down. I think first order of business is to get these spring eyes replaced, or at least get the old ones out, and see if we can't make a little progress on this project here. So what do you say we get to work? One down, 3 to go, and I'm winded already. As you can probably see from the time lapse there, these things don't go down without a fight. Every one of them I've ever taken apart has been a real pain. Basically what happens is that bolt just rusts inside of that steel bushing, and it gets real tight. I don't know that there's much easier way to do it than just use brute force. We'll see. These front two I'd like to salvage if I can. The back two, if I can't get them apart, I have just used the old fire wrench before to take those out. Makes a smoky, burnt rubber mess, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. I don't know if you may have picked up, I was using 2 hammers there, and the reason for that is, obviously, the bolt is stuck to that bushing, and the bushing is rubber, or the rubber surrounding the bushing is there to provide some shock absorption. It's to dampen vibration. So whether I'm using that impact wrench or the BFH, the fact that that rubber is there to absorb some of the blow just really lessens the effect of the tool on the bolt. So what you can do is back up the other side of whatever you're working on with another hammer, and that provides some inertia that needs to be overcome, so that when you strike that with a hammer, it's kind of like, you know, striking a piece of steel that's on an anvil or on the ground instead of holding it in your hand, if you want to see it that way. You've got something backing it up there to strike against. So that's kind of what I was doing there to get it broken free. Once you're able to get things like that broken free, a lot of times if you can put put some torque to them, try to spin them. That'll be the next best thing, because then once you've got it spinning, it's kind of breaking loose all of that rust and junk in there that's keeping it stuck together. So I was able to spin it, work it back and forth, finally got it out there. So I'm going to get back to work here. I've got a couple more to do, 3 more to do. We'll probably start with that guy over there, and worst come to worst, we may result to the use of heat. But we'll see what we can do here before we get to that point. Alright guys, well, this one right here has decided to be a real booger to get it apart. I just don't think it's going to go. You can probably see from the time lapse that I'm bouncing that piece of railroad iron, and that thing is not light. So I'm putting a heck of a charge into it with a hammer, but it's just not going to let go. So that one may require a little bit more drastic measures than these others, but in kind of keeping with the understanding that not everyone has some of these tools at their disposal, I want to show you probably the simplest way to remove these spring eye bushings. Essentially what you've got here with these spring eyes is, come on, focus here, an outer sleeve that you can probably see there, and then a rubber layer and an inner bushing. And this bushing is actually what provides a lot of the strength, because the bolt actually sandwiches this bushing between the inner and outer sides of the shackle so that they kind of function as one member. But one of the simplest ways to remove these that I've found is to use a drill bit to remove this rubber. You can use about a 3/8 inch drill, and just get in here in several places and chew all this rubber out that you can. That'll get this bushing out of the center, and then all that you're left with is that outer sleeve. And then what I like to do is come right down here. You see that little gap? I'll come up through there with a sawzall, a metal blade in my sawzall, and I'll slice that bushing. And if you can just cut that bushing in half, just cut it in one place like that, what that does is that allows it a place to go, so that that outer diameter of the bushing is able to relax, and then you can just knock it right out. So I'm going to demonstrate that purpose on this one. This one's kind of easier to reach right now. You know, if you don't have the fire wrench available to you, you know, that's probably going to be one of your best bets towards getting these out. It can be a real booger. The first time I did a set of these, it took me forever. And I mean, really, that bolt right there is a perfect example of how that can happen. You know, one bolt can stop you dead in your tracks. So you've got to be willing to adapt and overcome, and sometimes you just have to break down and buy a couple of parts that you weren't anticipating. On this one, I think we're probably going to have to sacrifice this shackle, but as I said, it's not in great shape anyway. One other thing that I have done with these before is I've cut the bolt. You get in here with a cutting wheel and a grinder, or in this case, you know, you could actually spring this apart and cut that bolt a little bit, And then you can do the same thing on the other side. Grind the head off of this bolt or cut it off with a grinding wheel. That does give you another means of removing that bolt, and then once this shackle is out of the way, you can do the same thing. You can drill your holes in that rubber, separate that inner bushing from that outer sleeve, cut the sleeve, and then pop it out. So I'm going to bring you in here a little bit closer. I'll give you a little bit better shot of this side here. I'll go ahead and remove this one, and then I'll probably just proceed with the others. The others in the rear here, I've got access to one side, and that's kind of the beauty of this method, is that you can remove those with access to just one side. But doing this job in the truck it can be a real miserable job. If you're doing this in the truck, I would recommend you just plan on buying those 4 bolts, cut them off, get the axle down where you can work on it, where it's outside of those mounts, and then you can kind of do what you need to do. Well, let's get that one taken apart here, and we'll show you what that process looks like. Well, there we have it. One of them all cleaned up. One down and 3 to go. So you can kind of see, my camera will focus here, you can kind of see that cutting that way through that little tiny opening in the spring allows you to get in there without really touching anything else with that saw blade. That spring steel is hard. That's hard stuff. That bushing is pretty tough too, but if you're patient, take your time. Once you get it sliced, just cave it in with a punch and a hammer and knock it on out of there. You can kind of see how here in the rust belt everything gets kind of rust welded together and can really be difficult to remove. So sometimes you got to be a little bit destructive to get things apart. Well, that is kind of what I'm going to do here for the other 3 as well. I don't think there's any real reason to highlight or to show getting those other 3 done. That's basically going to be the process that I'll just take around, repeat on the other 3 corners here, get this thing all pulled apart. The only one that'll be a little bit different will be that one where the spring shackle is still in place. And for that one, I hate to do it, but I'm probably just going to cut the spring shackle here. You can do that with a grinder, you can do it with a Sawzall, you can do it with a torch, you can do it however you want to. But if you can get this side off, then you've got access to that rubber bushing. You do the same thing. You just drill your holes in there, chew that rubber out, push that inner sleeve out, and then all you've got to deal with is cleaning up that little bit of rubber that's left over and cutting the outer sleeve or the outer bushing out. So that's what we're going to do. I'll get these other 3 sides done, and we'll bring you back in here and show you the next step. Alright guys, well, we've got all of our bushings removed, the old rubber bushings with the steel sleeves. Those are all gone. We've cleaned up the shackles. I've got 2 good shackles there, and we're about ready to start putting the new bushings back in here. So I just wanted to go over what that process looks like. These are polyurethane bushings from Energy Suspension. You can probably see right there that the part number is 4.2121G. This is a complete set of spring eye bushings for the old body style Dana 60. So these are really pretty simple. You've got 8 pieces in here this size and 8 that are a little bit smaller. There are, come on, steel sleeves in here as well. And the way that these go together is 10 times easier than the way that the old ones come apart. So what you do here, you can see we've got these little packets of grease. These are provided as part of the kit. And what you'll do is you'll just grease up the outside and the center bore of each one of these bushings prior to putting them in. Like I said, there's 8 of them that are one size and 4 of them that are the other size. These obviously are the ones that go in here, and these others go in the spring eyes themselves. And then each one gets one of these sleeves that just slides right down the bore. And these, once you get these clean, these eyes cleaned up and a little bit of grease on these, you can slide these in by hand. Super easy to install. Much easier than trying to press a replacement rubber bushing into place. Again, the sacrifice with these is that they are just a little bit more, I'm not going to say harsh, they're just a little more connected to the road. You don't get quite as much shock absorption through this stiff polyurethane as you would through the soft rubber of the original style bushings. But these are 10 times easier to install. And if you're going for ride quality, I hate to tell you, but you might be working on the wrong vehicle. Putting a leaf-sprung solid front axle underneath an old body style Ford, you're probably not doing the right thing here. So I'm going to go ahead, turn on the time-lapse camera here. We'll get these bushings all put into place. We'll put the sleeves down the center of them. We'll go ahead and buzz those shock absorbers off of there, and we'll pull the front cover and see what kind of mess we've got inside there, and see what else we can get into before we get ready to slide this axle underneath that truck and get it off the blocks. So I'm going to get to work.